some pets sit. Others carry gods across dimensions and scream in ancient tongues. And you can tell a lot about a god by the thing they're riding. Because in myth, the thing a deity rides into battle or sends to fetch a soul is never a regular animal. It's a mythical creature born of chaos, stitched together by power, fear, and symbolism. You don't train it. You don't name it. You survive it. These so-called pets aren't there to be cute. They're there to carry judgment, destroy obstacles, or devour whatever the god points at. And what's worse, they're usually better at it than the gods themselves. In some stories, these beasts are more feared than the deities that own them. In others, they become symbols of mercy, vengeance, or punishment depending on the direction they're facing. You'll hear phrases like sacred mount or divine companion, but that's like calling a loaded cannon a house decoration. Some were created to fly between realms. Others were born to judge the dead. One of them literally bit off a god's hand, and that was on a good day. But they're all considered pets in their own mythological way. Today, we're meeting 5 of these so-called pets. Some protect. Some punish. All of them serve. But none of them, under any circumstances, play fetch. First up is a mythical creature from Hindu mythology, one of the oldest and most elaborate systems of belief in the world. His name is Garuda, and calling him a bird is like calling a volcano a warm rock. Garuda is what happens when a god needs air superiority and chooses violence with feathers. Massive, golden, and armed with wings said to stretch across the heavens, Garuda isn't some friendly sky spirit. He's the personal mount of Vishnu, one of Hinduism's supreme deities, but that position wasn't handed to him. He earned it by breaking the chains of celestial slavery and humiliating a race of serpents so thoroughly, they're still bitter about it. According to the stories, Garuda was born into a divine family torn between 2 sides, the Nagas, serpentine demigods, and his own bird-like kin. The Nagas tricked his mother into eternal servitude, and Garuda into becoming their errand boy. Bad move. One of his first missions was to steal a pot of Amrita, the nectar of immortality, from the heavens. And he did. Alone. Fighting gods, defying fire, and breaking divine traps like they were made of twigs. He didn't do it to prove anything. He did it to buy his mother's freedom. That kind of loyalty didn't go unnoticed. Vishnu, impressed instead of angry, offered Garuda a deal: serve him and never bow to anyone else again. Garuda agreed, but only if no one else, mortal or divine, would ever ride him. Which is probably the most polite way anyone's ever told a god. I'm not an Uber. Since then, Garuda has flown Vishnu into battle, across dimensions, and into divine chaos without question. But don't confuse partnership with obedience. This is still the same creature who stole immortality and walked away glowing. And if that's what flying looks like, you might want to stay grounded. From Norse mythology comes a creature that looks like a horse, moves like a storm, and has the family tree of a fever dream. Sleipnir is the 8-legged steed of Odin, the all-father of the Norse pantheon. And no, that's not a typo. 8 legs, 4 on each side. No one's quite sure how it gallops, but everyone agrees on one thing: it outruns everything. What makes Sleipnir even more unsettling isn't the way it moves, it's where it came from. Loki, yes, that Loki, once transformed himself into a mare to distract a giant stallion. He got distracted himself, stayed in horse form too long, and ended up pregnant. The result was Sleipnir, the fastest, strangest, and possibly most traumatized horse in any myth. Despite being the literal child of chaos and trickery, Sleipnir became Odin's most trusted mount. And not because of loyalty, but because Sleipnir could go where no other creature could. It carried Odin across the 9 realms, into the underworld, through storms, between worlds, and back again, without breaking stride. In Norse belief, Sleipnir wasn't just a horse. It was a symbol of movement between life and death, between gods and mortals, between the known and the unknown. Some say its 8 legs represent the limbs of a coffin bearer. Others think it's just a divine mutation with a strong work ethic. Either way, this thing doesn't spook, doesn't stumble, and doesn't need a saddle. It's not the kind of horse that waits at a fence and nibbles hay. It's the kind that shows up in your nightmares, covered in frost, and leaves hoof prints on your grave. If Garuda makes the skies unsafe, Sleipnir makes sure there's nowhere left to run. But the next one isn't just fast, it swallows everything. From Hindu mythology returns another divine companion, but this one doesn't fly or gallop, It glides through sacred water with teeth, scales, and a design brief that reads like a dare. This is Makara, the mythological mount of the river goddess Ganga. And if the idea of riding an aquatic hybrid between a crocodile, an elephant, and a fish sounds like a nightmare pulled from a child's fever dream, congratulations, you're beginning to understand Makara's vibe. Often sculpted guarding temple entrances or carved into royal emblems, Makara isn't treated like a beast. It's treated like a gatekeeper between the mortal world and the divine. It represents water in its most mysterious form, life-giving but untamable. And while many depictions vary across regions, it's consistently described as powerful, sacred, and not something you'd ever want to see rising from beneath your boat. With the snout of a crocodile, the tusks of an elephant, the body of a scaled aquatic serpent, and the tail of a fish, Makara exists as the physical embodiment of chaos disguised as elegance. Ganga rides it not because it's graceful, but because it reminds everyone watching that she doesn't answer to human logic. This isn't a dolphin you train for tricks. This is the thing the dolphin swims away from. It's silent, steady, and sacred. It pulls the goddess of a river so holy that its water is believed to purify karma. And if this is what pulls your chariot, you probably don't tip the driver. But Makara only rules the water. The next one doesn't care about terrain. It doesn't ride, it doesn't fly, it devours. And then there's the one that eats gods. From Norse mythology comes the pet that made the gods nervous before it even opened its eyes. Fenrir is the giant wolf born of Loki, yes, again with Loki, and a Jotun, making him a divine creature by blood and a walking apocalypse by design. The gods saw him as a problem before he could walk. They tried to raise him in Asgard hoping they could tame the jaws before they grew teeth. But as he grew faster, stronger, and far more intelligent than they expected, they realized they hadn't adopted a pet, they had invited their own executioner to dinner. Eventually, they tried to bind him with chains. He broke everyone. Then they tricked him with a magical ribbon forged from the sound of a cat's footstep, a woman's beard, and the breath of a fish. Yes, Norse mythology has its own flavor of weird. Fenrir only agreed to test the ribbon if one of the gods placed a hand in his mouth as a gesture of trust. Tyr, the god of war, volunteered. When the trap was revealed, Fenrir bit off his hand. And that's the part of the story where things were still under control. Fenrir would go on to break free during Ragnarok, kill Odin, and throw the entire Norse cosmos into chaos. He's not a warning. He's a countdown. And while the gods called him a beast, he was never wild. He understood betrayal, loyalty, and vengeance better than most of them. He didn't obey. He waited. And when the time came, he delivered. As pets go, it's hard to top a wolf that eats kings. 10 out of 10 on loyalty. Just not to you. The last one doesn't bite. It devours souls. From ancient Egyptian mythology comes a creature that doesn't hunt, chase, or roar. It waits. Ammit, whose name means devourer, isn't some wild beast unleashed on command. She's the silent conclusion to a very specific kind of failure. With the head of a crocodile, the front of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus, she combines the three most dangerous animals known to ancient Egyptians into one mythological warning label. She didn't serve a god of war or vengeance. She served Anubis, the god of the dead, and her job wasn't to punish the wicked, it was to finish them. When a soul arrived for judgment, its heart was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the embodiment of truth. If it passed, the soul was welcomed into the afterlife. If it failed, it didn't go to hell. It went to Ammit. No second chances, no appeals. She would eat the heart and erase the soul from existence entirely. That's it. No eternity. No memory. Ammit was never worshipped, never prayed to. She had no temples, no cults. She wasn't a deity, she was a consequence. A divine pet stationed at the edge of cosmic justice, used only when all mercy ran out. And while other beasts might carry gods into battle or guard their temples, Ammit didn't protect. She deleted. Which makes her the final pet anyone will ever meet. Or won't. Because if she does her job right, it's like you never existed at all. So the next time someone asks what kind of pet you'd want, maybe think twice before saying something cool like a god's animal. These 5 were handpicked by gods, and not because they were cuddly. They are powerful, loyalish, and definitely not the type to wait for a treat. And look, if walking into the underworld on the back of a feathered reptile sounds like your thing, go for it. Just don't expect it to fetch. Good luck with that mythical pet.